Hey everybody, today I'm down in Southern California with the most electrifying news out of Honda in quite some time. This is the first ever full electric Honda Prologue. First things first, yes, the Prologue is based on the General Motors Ultium platform, but everything you see was designed by Honda. It does use some General Motors parts, of course the General Motors batteries and the General Motors motors, but that's actually an asset to Honda because it helped speed up the development of the Prologue, bring this to market sooner, and most likely will help it get the full $7,500 tax credit, although exact assembly locations and details are still a little undisclosed at this moment. Honda will have more information for us towards the end of the year. Let's talk about the design first. This certainly looks an awful lot like the electric city car that Honda sells in Japan, only supersized for the North American market. I like this black bar that runs across and how well they've integrated these full LED headlights with the rest of the design. These are LED reflectors. We have the daytime running lights and the turn signal on top, LED fog lights below, and then a functional air curtain on each side. Now you should know that this particular trim is the Elite trim, and we have this very attractive sort of electric teal paint job on it. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section. There are going to be 3 different trim levels to start with more coming in the future. The first 2 trims will be available as either a single motor or a dual motor, and then the Elite trim is going to get the dual motor standard. We're also going to get these absolutely enormous 21-inch wheels and 275 width tires. These are the biggest wheels that Honda has ever put on a vehicle in North America. And that's probably the right time to talk about size. At just over 190 inches long, this is about the same size as a Honda Passport on the outside as far as its footprint goes, width and length. But you'll notice it certainly has more of a station wagon vibe with this roofline right here. Honda says that that was obviously for aerodynamic reasons, and it's also to try and attract a different kind of customer, because in the electric space, this general profile is a little bit more common. We certainly have a relatively high belt line. I have to say, I like this look more than the Acura ZDX. I like the look of the ZDX up front, but I certainly like this more traditional greenhouse treatment back here, where we have body-colored pillars in the rear rather than that sort of hearse-like look that we found in the ZDX. We have a pretty attractive and subtle spoiler in the back, and again, very sleek taillight modules. But the biggest change back here is the Honda logo. We actually don't have the logo. We have Honda spelled out. This is something that they have seen, that Honda has done in other world markets for a while, but this is the first time they've done this in the United States, and you can expect that to extend to the next generation of Honda's electrified product line. They're calling that product line the Honda E series. So we do have the E colon badging right over there on the passenger side of the vehicle. You'll find that badging on Honda's own 100% from the ground up engineered EV that's coming soon, but you'll also find it on this cooperative development with General Motors. Let me know what you think about the design. I do appreciate the lower roof height. I also appreciate the fact that we're getting roof rails here, so that's going to make this a lot more practical for people that want to take their EV and do outdoorsy activities. Very much like a Subaru Outback, it means that loading a kayak or a canoe or skis on top of your EV is going to be a lot easier than something bigger and boxier like the Kia EV9. Unfortunately, I can't open the hood on this Prologue. Hopefully I'll be able to do that next time I see one. Under here, you're always going to find an electric motor because unlike the ZDX, the Prologue is going to start as a front motor EV. A lot of folks are a little bit disappointed by that, but it makes sense when you really think about it because you get greater regenerative braking potential and theoretically efficiency could be slightly higher, especially when packaging things like the charging circuitry. Everything can be right there under the hood, really minimizing some of the cabling lengths versus a single rear motor model. Obviously, if you want the sporty single motor rear-wheel drive model, that would be the ZDX. Now, unfortunately, Honda has not said what the power output level of the single motor will be. We know that the dual motor model will be 288 horsepower, 333 pound-feet of torque. The single motor model probably going to be somewhere over 200 horsepower, but likely lower than the dual motor model. All Prologues will have an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that's going to give the base version approximately 300 miles of range. DC fast charging is not going to be as quick as some of the Korean options. That's something you should know right up front. It's going to top out at around 150-155 kilowatts as far as the DC fast charge peak speed, but Honda is saying it's going to have a pretty flat charge curve. If you want that 18-minute 10% to 80% charge rate, you're going to have to get something like an EV6 or an Ioniq 5. And I certainly find that this is boxy just like the Ioniq 5, so I'm really going to be interested to see how this compares with that Hyundai, but the interior appears to be a little bit roomier. As you might assume with this lower roofline, it's not going to be as cargo practical as a Honda Passport, even though it's about the same size. So let's take a look behind this powered hatch. Back here, we find about 30 cubic feet of storage space, approximately 25 cubic feet behind the second row seats and the hatch, and then an extra 5 cubic feet under the load floor. You'll see that 22-inch roller bags like this, you could line them up across the rear, but you're only going to fit maybe about 4 in there because we do have this raked hatch profile right there. I am a little bit surprised about the cargo room numbers in the Prologue because this is a little bit closer to Honda HR-V than Honda CR-V as far as its cargo capacity. We do get this extra 5 approximate cubic feet down here under the floor that you won't find in an HR-V, but you can see that we have this sort of eccentrically shaped area there, maybe a pizza box style area there where you can put charge cords, additional accessories, etc. No place to put a spare tire. Then with the rear seats folded down, we find about 55 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Now, Honda has not said exactly which measurement standard they are using, so it is possible that this is using a slightly different measurement standard versus the HR-V, and that its cargo capacity could be a little bit more closely aligned with CR-V. As we get into the inside, I suspect that's possible because we definitely have a lot of rear seat legroom. Let's go ahead and check out the driver's seat first, though. We come in here, you'll notice that we have plenty of room inside. This cabin actually has a solid feeling of width to it. We have power seats over here for the driver and the front passenger, but only the driver is going to get the 2-position lumbar support right there. We also get a tilt telescopic steering column with quite a large range of motion there. That's a nice touch. 2-position seat memory over there on the driver's door. As far as headroom goes, the seat is all the way down. I have maybe about 2.5 inches of headroom left. This one has this large panoramic moonroof, which is obviously going to cut down on headroom a little bit, but it also has an electric shade on it, which is something that I appreciate. Not the biggest fan of the all-glass roof look. Let's go ahead and check out the back seat now. That front seat was clearly adjusted for me. I'm 6 feet tall here. Hopping in the back, lots and lots of legroom, as you can see. This is the kind of EV where I could probably put a rear-facing child seat behind me, but if I scoot all the way over to this side of the cabin so you can see, my head is definitely touching the ceiling here, even with this seat in its most reclined position. So clearly headroom is not the biggest asset to this because of that plunging roofline. If you want a bit more headroom, you're probably going to want something like the Honda Passport. Now, on the other hand, we do have this completely flat floor back here with air vents for the rear passengers, 45-watt USB-C power outlets, also a 120-volt inverter outlet. That's a really nice touch. And if headroom is a bit more important, you might actually want to sit in the middle seat because unusually, this middle seat is lower to the ground than the outboard seats. And I actually have enough room here where my hair is just barely brushing the ceiling. So this is definitely going to be the roomier place to sit in the back. The rear seats have a 2-stage recline, and they do fold almost completely flat with the cargo area in the rear. All right, let's take a look at the interior now. As you'd expect, it is definitely very Honda by General Motors because there's a lot of GM content in here, but it's obviously styled by Honda. Most notably, we have those center stack buttons that are definitely very similar to what we find in GM's Ultium family of vehicles. Up here on the ceiling, we find the controls for this large panoramic moonroof. Yes, it is going to be OnStar branded. It's actually going to be co-branded between Honda and OnStar as far as that telematic system goes. You can see this really large panoramic moonroof back there. And there's Travis, who's going to be heading up our EV channel back there. Wave to everybody, Travis. He's having a little bit of difficulty fitting back there because he has a pretty long torso. So certainly keep that in mind as far as that rear seat room goes. Over here, we have height adjustable shoulder belts and 2-way adjustable headrests for the driver and the front passenger. The front seats feature perforations, but this particular model does not have ventilated upholstery, which kind of surprised me since that is something that we're going to find on the Acura ZDX. I really do like this 2-tone, or actually I should say 3-tone interior, because you can see that the seats are a mixture of sort of medium gray, this off-white upper section right there, and then we have charcoal trim on the doors. Let me know what you think about that design touch. It definitely looks very striking in person, and from this angle you can really see those 3 different colors as they combine there. Lots of ambient lighting is going to go on in this interior, but unfortunately this is a very early pre-production model where not all the electronics work. So you can see that the ambient lighting strip would normally be right here in the middle of the door. It is not actually on, but if I open the driver's door, it will just turn on there just very briefly, and then you can see the ambient lighting strip over here on the bulk of the dashboard They didn't give us that honeycomb texture that we find in the Civic and HR-V, etc. I actually think that's refreshing that they finally have stopped doing that on the interiors, because this is going to be easier to clean. But you should know that we have lots of piano black plastic instead, and that is really going to show scratches pretty early, something that I'm not the biggest fan of in new cars. Down here we have a decently sized glove compartment. You could probably fit a 10-inch or an 11-inch tablet computer inside. Speaking of tablet computers, we have one bolted to the dashboard right here. This is going to be running the latest Google infotainment operating system. Unfortunately, this software is not quite ready for prime time, so they've just given us an overlay. This is not actually real software running here, but it is going to have a physical power and volume knob. It's going to support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it's going to support Google Mapping on both that central display and the large full-color instrument cluster over here. This is going to have 6 different layouts. I haven't been able to see them, rather unfortunately. They say that Google Mapping will be offered over here. I'm really going to be interested to see if Apple CarPlay 2 Maps is actually going to be supported, or 2-screen, because we are going to see that functionality in some of GM's new vehicles that are running this same software. So it's entirely possible that could come to the Prologue as well. Up here we have a full-color heads-up display, fairly well integrated into the dashboard. That's definitely a feature I like in a new EV. So if you want lots of LCDs in the dash, definitely take a look at this model. Going back to the center console, 2 big air vents there. We actually have a power button over there to the left of the steering wheel, to the right of the steering wheel. That's something that we don't find in every EV out there. 2-zone automatic climate control. You can see no ventilated seat buttons there or anything like that. 45-watt USB-C charge ports down here. 12-volt power port, lots of room for tablets, big smartphones. There's an iPhone 14 Max. You can see it definitely occupies a small amount of that large space right there. These are 32-ounce Nalgene bottles, so lots of room. Slot-style Qi wireless charger, and a big storage area under that center armrest right there. Then under that we have a smaller storage area. Interestingly enough, the front floor is not completely flat. We do get some unused space right there under that small storage area. Now moving up from there, you'll notice we have a Honda logo on a rather General Motors steering wheel. So we have the controls for the adaptive cruise control system that's going to be standard here, but then we have the single regen paddle like we find on the back of a Chevy Bolt. And then on the back of the steering wheel, we find the audio controls. That's also another GM move. So track forward, backward, and volume up, down, those are on the back of the steering wheel. That's actually something I really like. I think that's a better place to put it than on the face of the wheel. Over here we find things like the heated steering wheel button, infotainment, and voice commands. The stock is very Tesla-like as far as its operation goes. Of course, that would be the first generation Model S, since Tesla has moved to an on-screen shifter. On the other side of the steering wheel, we have the turn signal stock and, of course, the windshield wiper controls. I know a lot of folks have been curious about this, but no headlight controls over here, no headlight controls outside of the touchscreen infotainment system actually. Over here we just have the electric parking brake, lane centering, auto brake hold, and the dimmer control. As you'd expect from Honda, there's going to be a complete suite of driver assistance and active safety tech standard on every Prologue. Adaptive cruise control, their lane centering software, blind spot monitoring, etc. That's all going to be standard. Then we're going to find a few features that we haven't seen in every Honda before, like an automated steering avoidance system. So if you're going to try and change lanes into someone, the blind spot monitoring system is going to let you know, and it's going to try and steer to keep you away from that interaction. Unfortunately, it's not going to get a version of GM's Super Cruise system, which we are going to find in the Acura ZDX. That's probably just to keep these products a little bit more separated. Acura is calling that Active Acura Watch 360 something or other, basically Super Cruise. Honda, not going to get the Super Cruise system. This is going to have traditional lane centering with the blind spot monitoring system, etc. We don't know what the price tag is going to be like on the Elite trim, but we know that the EX trim, which is where things are going to start, is going to be in the high 40s, so under $50,000 plus destination, of course. It's likely that it will qualify for some federal tax credit, but those details are just a little bit unclear at this moment because Honda has not said exactly where assembly is going to happen. I would say bet on the tax credit, however. Definitely one distinct advantage for this over the Ioniq 5 at the moment, which is not built in North America, and it's going to help compete a little bit more directly with something like the Volkswagen ID4, which is built in North America and does get that tax credit. Let me know what you think about the Prologue down there in the comment section below, and should we pre-order one? Because I have to admit, I am pretty intrigued about this. I've been really interested in getting a long-term GM Ultium or a long-term Honda lately, and this could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I really love the styling, and I really love the color as well. The downside, of course, of the Prologue is going to be some of the charging times and some of the charging details around. Some of those are unclear, some of those are clear. We know that the DC charging rate is not going to be quite as quick as some. I think it's still perfectly acceptable for the occasional road trip. We also don't know how Honda is going to be integrating all the various charging networks in the US. We know that they're going to go to the NACS connector. We know that the Tesla supercharging network is going to be supported with an adapter on this model because it's going to have CCS to start. And we know that later NACS is coming. But are you going to have to use multiple apps? That, no. There's going to be a Honda app to integrate everything. Is it going to support plug and charge where you simply plug it in and charging automatically starts? That is a little bit less clear. I would say most likely, since GM has put their support behind that particular tech, we are going to be finding that in GM Ultium vehicles, but Honda has not said at this moment. So with all that, let me know what you think about the Honda Prologue. Should we get one? Are you interested in one? Are you going to pre-order one? What are your thoughts down there? Or are you waiting until we actually find a Honda EV that is 100% built by Honda? The tricky part with that, of course, is that Honda doesn't have any North American EV manufacturing infrastructure. They build the majority of their lineup in North America for the North American market, but their battery electric vehicles, currently they're not built in North America. And so that would be quite some time and some investment before we actually find something that would get that preferential tax treatment in the United States. And that's one of the big reasons, of course, that Honda went in this particular direction. I think this is a faithful merging of these two companies. I do like some of the GM features that we find inside. I think actually that the Google software and the instrument cluster, that's a big win for Honda because GM has done a really good job with their latest Google software inside. The Honda steering wheel, I kind of wish it had a real Honda steering wheel. I have to say, that's probably the only thing that I would really want would be a steering wheel out of a Honda Pilot in the Prologue, but other than that, I think everything is a really good merging of the best from both companies. Let me know what you think about that as well down there in the comment section, and is the best from both companies good enough for you to want a Honda Prologue? See all of you later.